Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Today I'd like to talk about a very important issue that many people are interested in, they're fascinated with, they can't get this topic out of their mind, and that is marriage. Now, I'd like to paint a bit of a picture for those who might not know what it's like growing up in the West, what it's like growing up particularly in the United States. Now keep in mind, I graduated from high school in 2004, so that was quite some time ago, and things have changed a lot, but from my knowledge they've really only gotten worse. Now when I was in elementary school, I remember, boys and girls, they'd have crushes on each other, and there'd be boyfriends and girlfriends. That's as early as elementary school, just little kids. Fast forward to middle school, not only are there boyfriends and girlfriends and relationships, but kids are going through puberty now. Kids are becoming adults, their hormones are racing. Fast forward again to high school, you have women on birth control, you have women having abortions, you have women having children. I remember my high school in particular, there was actually a daycare inside the high school so that people who had children, they could drop their kids off at the daycare and go to school, try to graduate high school. So then you can fast forward to college, and there are a lot of people, the main reason, if not the only reason they want to go to college is to party, is to hook up with girls. Girls want to hook up with guys. This is the reality, and marriage does not come into the picture for any of these people, generally speaking. So this just being the culture, the society that I was used to, when I started learning about Islam in my last year of college, and I embraced Islam, I was already 21, almost 22 years old. And I'm learning, okay, so in Islam, men and women, males and females, they can't have relationships with each other unless they get married. Not only that, but males and females, they're really not even supposed to have sort of like friendships, just casual friendships where you just casually sort of joke around and you hang out and talk and things like that. So I was like, that was a real shock to me because that was so different than what I was used to, than what I had grown up in. So one would think, all right, if this is how Muslims live, if this is what Muslims believe is correct, then you would think Muslims, they probably, number one, they should really have their own schools, man. They should be homeschooled, or they should go to Islamic schools to avoid all of the trials and tribulations and temptations that occur in public schools. And number two, you would think, man, Muslims must get married when they're young. Who would think that a man or a woman would avoid being intimate with the opposite sex for 25, 30, 35 years, especially in an environment like the US. And let me just say that, I know marriage is not for everybody. Some of the greatest scholars of Islam, they never got married. So I'm just speaking in general terms. I'm speaking about most people from my experience. But you would expect Muslims to take certain precautions to implement these aspects of their religion because the society in America and in the West in general, it completely goes against these values. But unfortunately, I don't know if it's because parents are just unaware of what it's like in American society for kids, or if they just don't care enough about their religion, or if they think that their kids are somehow immune to being affected by all this stuff around them. But by and large, we really don't do what we have to do to implement these values and make sure that our kids are staying away from the haram, and that they're getting married at a young age, and that we're facilitating and making it easy for them to do so. In fact, oftentimes we see the opposite. We see that there are young Muslims who they want to follow their religion, they don't want to fall into the haram, but it's so difficult for them to get married. Why is it so difficult for them? Well, sometimes they think, I can't get married until I've graduated from college, till I've graduated with a master's degree, with the PhD, till I have $100,000 in the bank, I have a new car, I have a nice house. Then I can get married. Akhi, how long is that going to take? And the same thing with the parents. Sometimes the parents, that's what they want for their daughter. No, you can't marry my daughter because I want her to marry somebody who's rich, who has a secure job, who graduated. Okay, well, let's think of the effects of this sort of mentality. You have men and women in their mid-20s, in their early 30s, in their mid-30s, in their late 30s. They're not married. They've never been with the opposite gender. You don't think that that's going to have an effect on them? Especially when they're living in a society where everyone else seems to be enjoying having relationships and doing whatever they want. And it can actually subhanAllah, can cause a resentment towards Islam. People can start trying to change the religion and have ill feelings towards the law of Allah because they see it as a difficulty. Allah's made it very easy to get married, and Allah has given us certain rules to make marriage work, to make the family structure work. When we don't implement these things, look at how families fall apart. Look at how many single parent households there are. Look at the effects that this sort of stuff has on a society. Look at how many men cheat on their wives because they're in a society where they have all this temptation around them, and they're told that they can't have more than one wife. They're told that they can cheat on their wives, that they can have illegitimate relationships and children with as many women as they want, but if they want to have two wives that they take care of, where both wives agree to it, they're not allowed to do that. Now, for my personal interactions with certain people, I mean, I'm speaking in general terms, so please nobody take offense to what I'm saying, but this is just a reality that I feel is important to point out and to understand. If you're a grown man, you're in your 20s, your 30s, you've never been married, you don't have a wife to take care of. Some brothers are, subhanAllah, extremely immature. When you get married, when you have children, when you have certain responsibilities, it helps you become focused. It helps you understand how the world works. It helps you get your priorities straight. Unless you're really mature enough to say, okay, I'm gonna focus on this, I'm gonna focus on that, and you follow the footsteps of some of the great ulama of the past who never got married, for example. Unless you're doing that, you find yourself, you have a lot of free time, you have a lot of built up energy, you have certain needs, you want to be intimate, but there's nobody that you can really be intimate with. And sometimes you see young guys, they're sort of like playfully joking with each other and talking about things that, subhanAllah, they shouldn't be talking about, but it's just because they're just filled with energy. They don't have a lot of focus because they're not married, they don't have kids, they don't have a lot of responsibilities. And this has an effect on all of us. And what about the sisters? Look, it's well known that there are more women in terms of population than men. So let's say the men, they're putting off getting married until they're in their 30s. Or let's say you don't want your daughter to get married until she finishes all of her school and she's in her 30s. So let's say you have a 30-year-old man, a 35-year-old man, he has a good job, he has lots of money, and now he's ready to get married. Do you think he's going to marry the 35-year-old sister? Or do you think he's going to go and he's going to marry one of these sisters in her early 20s? Who's going to marry this 35-year-old sister now? I mean, I'm just being honest. Look at what men typically do. You find old men, if they're rich, do they marry older women the same age as them? No, they marry younger women. And because polygamy is illegal and a lot of Muslims, they don't want to implement this aspect of their deen, a lot of women, they can't get married. They want to get married. No one will marry them. Their parents were too picky about who they would allow them to marry. Oh, this brother, he's too religious. Oh, this brother, he doesn't know my native tongue. Oh, this brother, he doesn't have enough money. This brother, he didn't graduate from college yet. He didn't get a master's degree yet. SubhanAllah, look at how this is affecting the society of Muslims. It's not always that, okay, I'm going to get married and then I'm going to have to sacrifice all of my goals and dreams. On the contrary, if you can find the right spouse, then inshallah, they're going to help you accomplish your goals and dreams. They're going to help you achieve them. And that's not to say everyone run out right now and get married as soon as you can. You also need to understand that marriage is difficult. It's not all fun and games. And it's not something that you should play around with, because if you get married and things don't work out, it can be very devastating. There can be a lot of serious consequences. So you need to understand what you're getting yourself into. You need to prepare yourself, and you need to try as hard as you can to pick the right spouse. The best reason to marry somebody is for their deen, for their religion. That gives you a foundation, and it gives you the most secure and strong foundation. But before you can marry somebody for their religion, you need to know about your religion. Some people, subhanAllah, they know a little bit about their religion, they get married, and then they start learning more about their religion, and then you find that the husband and the wife, they see things differently, they get divorced. A lot of Muslims get divorced nowadays, subhanAllah, Allah protect us. It's not easy. It can be extremely beautiful and wonderful, and it's important, but you also got to understand it's not going to just be all fun and games all the time. Men and women are different, they think differently, they're biologically different. So before you get married, you need to understand what marriage really entails. Now, there's a book I would recommend. I believe the title is Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus. It's a famous book. I'm not saying that everything in it is perfect. It's not written from the perspective of a Muslim, but there are very, very important things in that book that people need to understand before they get married. And that is how men and women, they really think differently. And some of us, because we don't have those relationships, we don't date, we don't do this and that, Some brothers, they really know nothing about women. Some women really know nothing about men. So then they get married and they don't know how to act. They don't know how to treat their spouse. Women, they have different needs. They think differently. They want you to comfort them. They want you to hold them, to say it's going to be okay. They don't want a solution to every single problem they come with. And that's like the complete opposite to how men are wired. A brother comes to you with an issue, you just sit there and you try to help him solve the problem. A woman comes to you with an issue, she doesn't want you to solve her problem. She wants you to listen and to show affection and to care. And that can be, subhanAllah, that can be really hard for a man to do. And if you never do that, y'all are going to be bumping heads, arguing. You're going to be like, oh, I'm just trying to help you. She's going to be like, oh, I don't want you to help me. And you guys are just going to be bumping heads. It's going to be problems. So you got to know what you're getting yourself into. You got to know that it's not going to be easy. Inshallah, it will be great. And it'll be one of the greatest things you ever do. But you have to stick it out. You have to fight through the rough times and understand that you're going to have to make sacrifices. And you can't just give up when you start having problems. So those are just some of the things I wanted to point out. It's very important that we don't send our kids to public school and just have them running around in this society that doesn't share the same values as us. Because you're going to have children that are looking at pornography, that are having boyfriends and girlfriends. They're going to be having sexual relations outside of marriage. They're going to have ill feelings towards their deen because their deen is telling them they can't do this and they can't do that. Yet the Muslim community hasn't figured out a way to cater to their needs, to have them implement their deen, but still not sort of put them in a society where it's going to feel like torture for them. We have to understand that you can get married and your spouse can help you achieve your goals. It's not that they're going to hinder your life. As long as you have a plan and you're serious and you're mature and your spouse backs you up and your families back you up, inshallah, you can get married before you graduate. You can get married before you have this career with tons of money. You just have to be smart about it and you have to be serious about it. You really need to understand your religion and marry somebody who understands their religion and that you guys see eye to eye about Islam. These are just some of my thoughts. Allah knows best. Let me know what you think in the comments. Jazakumullahu khairan. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.